information. You're going to have your consulting hypothesis by the end of week 1. You already have a roadmap. So I've given you the checklist of actions that you need to do. And the plan will unfold as we go through the content. And then the action. This is the only thing. This is the only thing that I cannot give you, that I wish if there was some miraculous way that I could bend the laws of reality, then I would. The only thing that I can't give you is action, which is doing the work and applying the causes. I'm going to tell you to do everything that you need to do. That's all I can do. I wish I could do it for you, but on a mass scale, I simply can't. So the action is up to you. I cannot control. Do the fucking work. Okay? If I tell you to do something, do it. Don't put it off. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't put it on a list unless I tell you to. Just do the work. Like, I'm telling you, if you listen to these videos properly and you do everything I tell you to do, and you let time elapse, you do it consistently and properly, and you don't get results, I would be perplexed. I would be very, very surprised. Okay? And you'd be completely within your right to hop on school and say well, why the hell isn't this thing working? But it should. So K, knowledge. This program will provide you with the knowledge you need. C, week 2 will help you get there. So character, the mindset module will help you do this. This is one of the most important things. So besides doing the work, if you don't get the mindset and the foundations right, you're screwed. And then DS, desired situation. So once again, you should know what you want. If you don't, we'll cover this in week 2. So there is one little tidbit that we're missing from the above explanation. There's one little thing, which is this little bad boy here, this little upwards hat looking thing. Now, I've snuck that in there. Some of you might have noticed I haven't talked about it yet. Well, the upwards little hat thing is an exponent. And this means to the power of. So an exponent is basically a power law. And what a power law is it's something that, amplifies the growth or, the trajectory of something. And I'm going to give you a full explanation as to how exponents work in a second here. They're very, very important to understand. Now, time is an exponent, meaning that it basically is a power or has power to create huge exponential effect. Now, what time will do is it will compound all of your efforts to create huge effects in the future. And we're going to talk about time in a lot of detail here because this really is the most misunderstood part of the equation. Okay, and this is where we're going to start to get a little bit abstract and, hold on to your hats here because I'm going to blow your absolute mind again. Hopefully I did it last time. Okay. So yeah, time compounds stuff. And if you want to achieve your desired situation, the chances are you need a little bit of compounding to help you get there. And if you're wondering what compounding is, it's basically when something's growing or something's happening and nothing really happens at the beginning. like it takes a long time for it to gain momentum, and then suddenly out of nowhere, just whoosh, the thing goes crazy. Primary example that will help you understand is like rolling a snowball down a hill with snow on it. So you pick up some snow, you're atop of a big hill, pick up some snow, you compact it into your hands get all cold and painful, but you don't care because it's snowing and you're having fun. So you know, at least that's what we used to do in the UK, never snows in the UK. So you compact this little snowball into your hands. You put it at the top of the hill and you start rolling the snowball down the hill. And as the snowball rolls, it picks up snow. And in the beginning, like this snowball, it's not getting very big because there's a very small surface area. But over time, gradually, and then like it gets a little bit bigger, and then suddenly there's like a point of, literally in physics, it's called point of critical mass. And the snowball just gets massive really quickly. Like the surface area increases, which means that it picks up more snow, which means that the surface area increases, which means it picks up more snow. And then we have this thing called amplification occur, where it gets really big really quickly. But it takes a long time to get big enough to start getting big quickly. That's what an exponent does. And time is an absolutely beastly exponent. And I'm going to show you how to use it and become a millionaire. So, okay, strap yourself in for a bit of a intellectual, abstract adventure, for lack of better words. So, knowledge, memory, and time. So, you know, there's a few things that we need to have to become successful, and a couple of them are knowledge and time. And the rest of them are pretty self-explanatory, so we're going to focus here. So let's talk about knowledge and time. So knowledge is basically really just learning and remembering what you need to know to become successful. And time is basically just, I don't know why that's in bold, time is basically the period or sequence of events that brings effect out of cause. So what is time? I mean, that's a pretty damn scary question to try and answer on the spot. But if you think critically about this, time is basically, it's a dimension. And what that means is it's a space that we can use to observe the world. In essence, it's a dimension, right? It's really the definition of time. And what it is it's basically a sequence of events. Now, we have obviously standardized time into years and days and weeks and hours and minutes and seconds. But think about this for a second. Days don't really exist. Okay? Hours don't really exist. They exist because we think they do. But there's no, biological structure that is an hour. It's not real. It's not like an ocean that you can point to and be like, oh, that's a thing. Like we created these words like hour, second, etc. to do something called standardization, which is where you use words to give meaning to things. Because imagine not having like hours. Imagine not having a calendar. We used to not have a calendar until like the Romans came along. And things kind of sucked before a calendar. Because how are you going to meet someone? You're like, oh yeah, I'll meet you when the sun is in the sky at, 60 degrees. But then you realize that 60 degrees in the measurement of an angle is also an abstraction that humans have created to make sense of the world. So without these standardizations, we get into a little bit of trouble. And so time isn't hours, it's not days, it's not weeks, it's not years. That's just how we understand it, and that's how we perceive the dimension of time. But what time really is it's basically just a sequence of events, okay? Now, knowledge and time, they have a pretty tricky relationship. And the reason I'm explaining this to you is because there's a real big pitfall for you to watch out for. And if I don't help you watch out for it, you'll fall into it and you will fail and your business will die, okay? And it's all to do with knowledge and time. So knowledge and time, they don't get along very well, okay? They're in a bit of a toxic relationship. You know, they kind of need each other, you know, for the person, the conscious mind to manifest a goal, but they don't really get along. They don't like each other that much. And this is because as a human, your memory really sucks, okay? So remember, knowledge is about learning and remembering things. And the thing about memory is it gets worse with time. And so when we apply time to memory gets worse. And what that means is that over time, you forget things and therefore your knowledge decreases and gets worse. And so, you know, look, remember, the entire world ticks on cause and effect, okay? And like, you know, it just, that's how it works. So what's going to happen is this. You're going to put cause to effect, but it's going to take time for that cause to create the effect you desire. The problem is that as time goes on, your memory gets weaker. Now, you might be thinking, Charlie, well, why is that a problem? Why do I care? Well, eventually, if you were consistent over time, you know, if you've done what you need to do, then the cause that you've done will create the effect you want. But by that point, you'll have either given up or switched to something else because it didn't work or it wasn't happening fast enough. You know, these are some pretty common ones that we can just highlight in blue. Or you won't know why it happened and just put it up to luck, fate, or chaos. So let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to go through the Imperium Academy, okay? And what's going to happen is a year from now, 3, 4, 5 years from now, okay? If you, like 5 years from now, if you haven't made a conscious effort to come back to these videos and to relearn and remember them, you will have forgotten them, I promise you. And if you don't believe me, then pick any non-fiction book you've ever read. Or no, not even that. Pick any class you ever took in high school and pick a subject and tell me 10 things you know about that subject that would have been taught in that class. You can't remember, okay? And I don't want the excuse of, well, I just didn't remember it because it was just for an exam and I wasn't going to use it in the real world. Like, it doesn't matter. You know, like pick a book that you love, your favorite book ever that you've read time and time again. Maybe you haven't got one, but you know, pick a podcast episode that you've watched over and over again, or a documentary you've watched over and over again. Like, pick that book or that documentary or whatever, or that podcast. In that book, what does it say on line 7 in page 123? You don't know, right? That's kind of normal because you're not going to remember all the pages. But what if that line was really damn important? Like, you know, you're going to forget things. Same thing with your favorite movie. Like, what happens at 1 hour and 41 minutes and 37 seconds? Like, you probably don't know. You could give me a general answer, but if whatever happened in that movie was crucial to the success of your life or crucial to a certain thing happening that you wanted to happen, then you need to remember it. And so I know that what's going to happen with this program is if you're not continuously trying to remember what you've learned, you will forget it. And so what's going to happen with a lot of people in this program, and I hope it won't be you, it shouldn't be if you're listening, is you're going to go through the program, and then after 6 months, a lot of people will have given up, or they will have switched to something else. And they'll have switched to something else because they'll say, oh, this didn't work, or it wasn't happening fast enough. Oh, I tried Charlie's consulting program, it didn't work for me. And then it's like, well, really? Like, why not? Oh, it just wasn't for me. It just didn't work. It's like, well, what do you mean it didn't work? Because there's other people in the program that are getting results. So this sounds like a you problem, not a program problem, right? And the other kind of person that it will happen with is like, if they don't remember this program, then they'll go through the program and they might get results and then they won't remember why. They won't be able to attribute it back to the program. So this is very abstract. So let me give you a visual, okay? This is really important to remember. Like, if there's one thing to remember, it's this, okay? So look, things take time to work. This program is going to take a good year or two of consistent reminding and consistent action for you to actually become successful, okay? And I've told you this multiple times already. It's going to take time. The work you do today won't have a true major exponential effect for many years. You're not going to see the benefit of watching this video and remembering this video and applying this video for maybe like 5 years. I mean, hell, like 50 years. Like, you're not going to really see any absolutely, multi-millionaire, billionaire level 9-figure plays probably for 20 years, maybe 15, 20, 30 years. But even like getting to 6 figures, like, you're not going to see that happen for like maybe 6 months, 12 months, 24 months, 36 months. Like, well, no, that's way too long. 6, 12 months, 18 months probably, okay? So for example, the one cause that got me to where I am now was quitting my apprenticeship and starting my own business. So there was one little action I took, nearly 8 years ago now, 7 years ago. And that action has compounded over time and got to the point where I'm now making $10 million a year. Just one little action, butterfly effect style, one small thing. But I'm now making $10 million a year. And the good news is that I can remember, what made that happen. But a lot of people, they don't remember the things that got them to where they want to be. And this gets them into trouble. So I know that right now this might not make complete sense to you. And this might seem really weird. And you might be thinking, well, how the hell, why is this going to happen? It will all become clear in a second, I promise. So look, here's how effect works over time, okay? So this is obviously an exponential diagram. You should kind of be familiar with this, at least somewhat. This appears everywhere in life. So we have effect on this axis and time on this axis. So we have the cause here, which is something happening, okay? Like me quitting my apprenticeship or you starting this program. And then we have the effect. So the effect isn't that big for a long time. Like, this is snowball down the hill stuff. Like, that snowball's not going to be very big at the beginning. It's going to take a long time. 80% of this time-based diagram is just very slow growth, painful, slow growth, excruciating growth. And then suddenly, bang, out of nowhere, we hit this point of critical mass. A feedback loop kicks in, which I'll explain later, and we have this wild effect. And so we know that causes take a lot of time to affect. This is called latency, okay? It's delay. Causes take a lot of time to do this. Like this program, you're not going to see great results. It's like, I'm a month into doing it and it's not really working. Like, this is what happens with these people who either give up or they switch to like drop shipping or OnlyFans management agencies, God forbid. It's up to you what you do, but swiftly moving on, like people that move on to like, oh, I'm going to start an Amazon FBA business, or I'm going to start like a video editing, I'm going to do this, or I want to like get into sales or whatever. I don't know. Like, people switch and people change, and really what they're doing is they're giving up. And what they're doing is they're giving up during this point here because they think that it's not working, because the cause is just taking a lot of time to build momentum to go whoosh. And 99% of people, they give up before this little thing happens because they didn't have the patience, the foresight, or the wisdom to understand that the cause just needs a little bit of time to cook. And sometimes that little bit of time can be many months or many years. Like I've said, like, you're not going to see 10K a month next month. I mean, some of you will. Like, the odd person will just come through and break the paradigm and just crush it. But for most of you, it's going to take like a good year or two of consistent, painful work, building, and then something will click and you'll hit a point of critical mass, like a certain client or a certain milestone, and then bang, like, it'll fly up. Now, why the hell are we talking about memory then, if it's about effect? Well, let's plot memory over time. So on this axis, we have memory. On this axis, we have time. And then we have the cause, and then we have forget. So, we've got cause and effect, but we've also got cause and forget. And so what this means is that in the short term, like in the immediate short term, your memory is really good and your recall is very high. But human memory is pretty terrible in the long term. As time elapses, we tend to forget things. And if you don't believe me, what were you doing when you were 7 on the 18th of June? I don't know. Like, what was the first name of your maths teacher in school, in primary school or elementary school? Because you would know it. Like, someone would have, said like, Helen, can you pass me the binders? But you can't remember, right? Maybe you can, maybe you can. But this is an example, right? What did you eat for dinner 3 Wednesdays ago? You probably don't remember, okay? And it's cause and forget. And so what happens is our memory gets exponentially worse over time. And so, today you learn this stuff in the Imperium Academy. And tomorrow you're going to remember it real damn well. Maybe for the next week or two, couple of weeks, maybe a couple of months, you're going to remember it. It's going to be fresh in your mind and you'll be remembering it and everything will be good and you'll be acting it out and you'll be getting success and getting what you want. But then pretty damn quickly, out of nowhere, like whoosh, you forget it. Like just bang, gone, forgotten. And then, by the time you get here, you've completely forgotten it. Like, think about this for a second, man. Like, woman, person, like everything you've ever learned, you've forgotten 99.99999% of it. Because to remember everything would be absolutely insane. You'd be like, to consciously be able to recall every single moment of your life would be, I don't know, it's not really possible. I mean, maybe it is, I don't know, but that just doesn't make sense, right? So what you need to learn to do in life is find the things that you need to remember that are really damn important and just never forget them, never let go of them. Like your girlfriend's birthday, for example. It's a pretty big one. Don't you dare forget that. 'Cause trust me, I've done it before. It's not good. It doesn't end well, okay? So anyway, memory gets worse with time. I could probably explain to my ex-girlfriend, clues in the name now, it's ex, right? I could explain to my ex-girlfriend about how memory works exponentially over time, but I don't think she'd be that interested as to my excuses. But anyway, so memory gets worse with time. Time and effect gets better with time. So, Charlie, what the hell? Why do I care, right? Well, now we can see a problem. Because if we plot these two things together, we can see a problem emerge. So on this axis, we have memory and obviously effect. Memory is represented by the blue line. Effect is represented by the red line. And for those of you that have some intelligence in between your ears, which most of you do, I think, and will, you should be able to pretty immediately understand what this graph means and why it's a problem. Okay? What this means is that, so you do something, you start a business, or you do something with the anticipation of making something happen in the future. And you do it, and it starts to curve up, and you start to see the effect you want. And then bang, suddenly you're here. But at the start, you remember what you were doing, but then after a while, you forget what you did. And so, this is why people get confused in their life. Your life right now is the sum aggregate of every decision you've ever made. Life to you seems chaotic and out of control. You're like, oh, why do I have these problems, and curse this damn universe, and screw you, God, life sucks, or I don't know why I am where I am. But all that's happened is you've just forgotten what you did. So let me explain with an example. So today, let's say you make 200 cold calls. In 5 months' time, so you call 200 random clients to try and get them as clients. And then in 5 months' time, some random dude emails you out of nowhere asking you to sign up as a client. And you being you forget that this is a guy you cold called. You don't remember his email. You don't remember his name, obviously, because it was 5 months ago and you made 200 of them on that day. And so this guy emails you and you attribute this to luck, or worse, you attribute it to something else you did, thus forgetting what brought you the success in the first place. So when we do things that get us what we want, when by the time we've got what we wanted, we forget what we did. And so we tend to not repeat what got us what we wanted because we've forgotten that it got us that in the first place. And the same thing is true with bad things that happen to you. Okay? So let's say right now you're overweight. Or let's poor example. Let's say that you're in a really bad spot with a relationship. Okay? And this is like an exponential effect. So in the beginning, your relationship was kind of sucky. It wasn't that bad, but it was just getting gradually worse. And then whoosh, exponentially, your relationship just suddenly got really bad in the course of a month, right? Well, something happened years ago or months ago in the relationship that started off this chain of events to go exponential. And so you're here for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. Not in the woo-wah, live, laugh, love, maternal saying that girls use and some guys use to justify why things happen to them. Things happen for a reason because of cause and effect. And so if you're in a terrible place in your relationship right now, it's because of something that happened, something you did, or something they did, or something that happened that you didn't address. But you're now in this position where you're living this effect, but you can't remember what the hell you did wrong, or what they did wrong, or what happened that you didn't, resolve, right? So I want to set your expectations. This program might take a good year or two before you start seeing real results. And the thing is if you don't remember to go back through the foundations and the mindset training, when you start seeing the results, you're going to have forgotten why you got them in the first place. And the real results, like getting to 7 figures, becoming a millionaire, it's going to take 5 to 7 years, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years before you become a millionaire with this stuff. And I can tell you now that this training program, if you see it through and you're consistent, will be the first action that creates the exponential effect of you becoming a millionaire. But because you becoming a millionaire isn't going to happen for goddamn 7 years, by the time you get there, you'll have completely, well, maybe you won't have, you shouldn't have, because I'm telling you not to forget this. But by the time you get there, you'll have forgotten, it was this information that got you there. And then, you need to remember. So the best, most successful people, they remember what causes created the effect that they have or that they wanted. And so it's very imperative you remember this, because this is how we get into trouble as humans, is we do things today and, they compound over time, and then we move into the future, through time, through this dimension of time. And then we have a certain outcome, whether good or bad, and we have no idea where it came from because we forgot what the hell we did to get it in the first place. Okay? Memory gets worse gradually. Memory gets exponentially worse over time, and effects get exponentially better or, increase over time. So if you do something now, you'll remember what it is now. You'll be fresh in your memory, but this is why people give up, right? Because let's say that you're starting your consulting business, and let's say that up to here represents the first 6 months before, let's say a couple of months before you get your first client. You're going to start to make a little bit of progress in your consulting business, just a tiny bit, small bit of progress. You're going to get to here, you're going to be it's not working for me. I've been in the same niche for 4 months and I haven't got a client yet, or I've been doing this for 6 months. I've only got 2 clients. I'm only making $3,000 a month. I thought I was gonna be doing 10K a month by now. And then you're just not giving it the time to create the effect. And what's worse is that if it does start to work really quickly, is you're gonna forget why. So you have to remember this graph, okay? So fast results with this program are possible, and you should gun for fast results, but they should not be expected. If you expect to become wildly successful in the next few months, or by June, when it's April, you're setting yourself up for failure, and it does not work. So a lot of people do this where they'll come into a program like this and they'll say, I want to be making 10K a month by, and then they'll pick a date that's 2 or 3 months away. If that's you, I don't want to call you an idiot, because I know you just want the best thing for yourself, but you're being an idiot. Okay? You should gun for fast results, and you should want to try and get results quickly, but you want to stop trying to do it in the next month or 2 months, because it's just not going to happen, man. Because everything happens like this. Okay, it's going to take, it's 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 7 months, 8 months, bang, 1 year. Suddenly I'm making multi 6 figures. Wait, why is that happening? I can't remember. Oh yeah, it was the foundations and the mindset training. If you want to know what the biggest thing is with this, it's going to be the foundations training that this week. and then the mindset training. So week 1 and week 2, and probably week 3 as well with the expertise training. Like this whole program, like do not make the mistake of thinking this is a watch and done thing, especially the mindset training. The mindset training that I used to do when I was becoming successful at the very beginning, I revisit still every 3 months. And I'm not joking. It's like 20 hours of training and books and stuff that I reread continuously. Like one thing I use to work on my mindset is Discourses by Epictetus. It's a book by a Stoic philosopher, transcribed by a historian called Arrian. And I read that book once every 6 months, and I have done for the last probably 10 years now. Because, God, I do not want to forget it. I would rather learn the right thing and not forget it than try and learn a bunch of new stuff. Like, once you have what you need, which is what this program is, you don't need to learn more stuff. Like, learning is procrastination a lot of the time, okay? Like, don't get me wrong, you always want to be learning, you want to be finding new things, but this program gives you everything. So stop trying to learn all this crazy stuff. Stop reading 50 books and listening to 20 podcasts. Just find the right stuff and just remember it. And that's how I've always operated. Throughout my business career, I've had one mentor, one single point of knowledge. And that mentor's programs and resources, they haven't been updated for years now. And I go back to them and I rewatch them and I remember them, and obviously I can translate it to you guys. So this is with the mindset training. So what's going to happen is, and I can predict this very well, and then I'll move on, I promise, because I'm rambling on about this, but it's very important. You're going to go through the foundational modules. You're going to go through the mindset training. That's going to give you a massive heap of motivation. You're going to have a huge wave of discipline, a huge heap of motivation. You're going to start becoming an expert. You're going to start reaching out to clients, doing sales calls, and maybe signing a couple of clients. Then what's going to start to happen is, over time, you're going to kind of fall off a little bit and falter. And that's because you're going to have forgotten the mindset training. The mindset training is the catalyst for you to become successful, because it's going to give you that massive spike of motivation and that massive spike of, I can do this, that encouragement, right? And you need to go back to the mindset training, which is the week 2 training, and probably these videos as well, every 3 months. Promise me, like every 3 months, until it's drilled into you, until you no longer taper off, you have to go back and rewatch all this stuff, okay? And the mindset training is in the next week, and the Sales Transcendence Mindset Training, week 2. So the chances are is you've tried things before to become successful and make money online. So maybe this isn't your first rodeo. Maybe you've tried something else before Imperium Academy. And the chances are is that it didn't work. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. And you're going to be telling yourself things like, oh, it didn't work for me, or that niche didn't work, or that business didn't work. Like, you know, oh, maybe you've tried drop shipping before, right? Or maybe you've tried any of these other online business models and it didn't work. And so, you know, you're like, oh, it didn't work for me. That niche doesn't work, or that business just sucks, doesn't work. Well, here's some harsh truth. First of all, it didn't work for you. You are the problem. Telling me that it didn't work, like, you know, people say this where like, oh, I've tried this business model and it doesn't work. I'm like, why doesn't it work? They're like, well, I didn't get results. It's like, well, somebody else got results. So it's a you problem, right? The second thing is it didn't work in the ridiculously short time period you gave it. Like, oh, the restaurant niche, it just sucks. It doesn't work. Well, how long were you in the restaurant niche for? I tried it for 3 months. Like, dude, try it for a year. Like, you know, because this is the thing. It's like, it takes time. Like the first 3 months, you're not going to see anything. The first 6 months, nothing. Maybe you will. Maybe you'll be, you know, crazy about it and you'll get, like, it's possible. We've had people in Easy Grow go from 0 to like 50K a month in 3 months, but most of you it won't. And then also, you just didn't give it the time it needed to create the effect. You put a cause into motion and you cut it off before it could create the effect. You heathen. Give it time, okay? So you need to be reminded, just want to format this properly. So you need to be reminded way more than you need to be taught, okay? Your life is the sum of every decision and action you've ever made or taken, okay? But up until now, you didn't realize because you've just forgotten what you did. And the lesson here is to stick to it, okay? This is why I'm telling you this, is I'm imploring you to stick to this thing. Stick to the training, stick to the business model, stick to the niche that you pick, stick to the problem you try and solve, etc. You must give these variables and decisions time. It only works with time. The real issue that you're all going to have is you're all impatient as fuck. You're all on short form content. You're all addicted to junk food. You're addicted to gaming and pornography and, self-improvement as well is another addiction, whether you like it or not. It's a good one though, I suppose. But chances are you have some weird behaviors and addictions that have wired your brain for instant gratification. And the definition of business is delayed gratification. Like right now, your brain expects everything you do to provide immediate dopaminergic reward instantaneously. And if you're the kind of person that's been playing video games, or if you're the kind of person that's been watching short form content, or eating junk food, or playing, just doing stupid stuff, your brain, it can't tell the difference between business and a video game, or it can't tell the difference between business and TikTok. It's a universal comprehension mechanism, which means that it will expect immediate instantaneous reward from everything you do. And that's fine, but you just need to be aware of it. First of all, cut those behaviors out, man. But it's so hard to stick to things that aren't giving you immediate dopaminergic reward, because you're used to getting that everywhere. So this is why these behaviors are so damaging, and they really hurt you and your business success, because they stop you from sticking to things. And it's no wonder why. Let's say you spent the last, let's say that right now you're 20 years old, and let's say that you got a gaming computer and a phone when you were 14. You've spent the last 6 years conditioning your brain to instant gratification and immediate reward. And what that means is that everything you do, you expect it to happen right now. And so, you pick a niche and you pick a problem, and then you get to work, and then 2 months elapses and you haven't got a client yet, and there's problems and it's painful. And then you're like, oh, this sucks, I'm going to switch. And you go and pick something else, and then you do this, and then 2 months elapses, and then it's not working. And all you guys are doing is just hopping between business models, niches, and problems. And you're not giving the universe the time it needs to compound the effect that you want. You're putting the cause into motion by picking and deciding and getting to work. But every time you switch niche, every time you switch business model, every time you change the problem you're trying to solve, you reset the cause back to zero. And this is why no one is successful in this day and age. It's because we've wired our brains to instant, immediate dopaminergic gratification, and we cannot comprehend that it doesn't work like that in business. Okay? Really, really, really important. So I want to give you a couple of action items here, okay? So what I want you to do right now, I'm just going to bring this up. What I want you to do right now is a couple of things. First of all, I want you to schedule in your calendar. So if you haven't got a calendar, you should get one. Google Calendar or something like that. Schedule a rewatch of the Foundations Week and the Mindset Week 3 months from now, and have that schedule reoccur every 3 months until you hit your goal. This is honestly because I'm giving you what you need, and I'm going to continue to give you what you need. But if you forget it, it doesn't matter. The only way you're going to stop forgetting it, the only way I'm going to stop you from forgetting it, is by you rewatching it over and over again. And so what I want you to do now is this. Schedule it, okay? I promise you, if you do not do this, if you do not schedule this in and actually do it, because I'm telling you to do something here and you need to do it, if you don't do this, then you will forget what you learn. It's inevitable. Every piece of information that enters your mind and your memory has what scientists would call a half-life, which means it degrades over time. And if you don't top it up and remember it until it becomes part of you and your identity, then you're done for. And if you forget what you learn, then you're going to quit and you're going to switch and you're going to make this fatal mistake. Right now, this makes sense to you. Right now, you get it. You see it clearly, and you know you're I'm not going to make this mistake. I'm going to stick to it. I'm going to do what Charlie says. But remember, this is information, and right now, it's very strong in your memory. 6 months from now, you'll have forgotten it, okay? And when you come back to watch these videos every 3 months, it will completely perplex you as to how much you've forgotten and how much you had to remember. And I still do this with certain videos from Sam, my mentor. I'll still go back and watch old videos that I forgot, and I'm like, shit, how the hell did I forget this? I've been watching this video every 3 months for 7 years now, and I still forget it, So the second action item is to print this off and pin it up above your workspace and do not forget it. So what I've done here is create a little screenshot that says, remember to remember. If there's one thing to remember, it's to remember, okay? So this is available in the resources section to download. If you can't see it there, obviously it's on the PDF. It will be available in the resources section as well, which is obviously Six Figure Fusion. Take a screenshot, download this, whatever, and then just print it off in color if you can. If not, don't worry. Or if you haven't got a printer, then put this on your desktop background, okay? Put it on your computer background and never forget this, please. I know I've just spent the last, like, I don't know, God knows how many minutes rambling about the same thing over and over again. It's for a reason, all right? So don't put these on a to-do list and tell yourself you do them later. Don't be an idiot, right? Don't be like, oh yeah, I'll print this off in a minute and then I'll schedule this later, because you won't. All right? So yeah, if you like, pause the video right now. If you haven't got a printer, then put this thing on your desktop background, or maybe do both. Probably do both. And if you haven't got a calendar, then go and create one, Google Calendar, and put in an event every 3 months, and schedule it out for like a whole day to rewatch week 1 and week 2 of the Imperium Academy. And I know you haven't even watched week 2 yet, but I know that when you do, like, that will change your life. But you have to remember, like, this is the quote, and then I'll move on, I promise. Information can only change your life for as long as you remember it. Okay? So that's that. So, okay, now that we've moved on from that ramble, exponential distribution. Why are some people extremely rich, but others extremely poor? Why does the top 1% of people own 50% of wealth in the world? Why do the rich get richer and the poor get poorer? Like, you've heard this quote before, right? Like, the rich get richer. You've heard the top 1%, they own half the world. Well, why? Why is the distribution of everything so unfair and biased towards a small group? Like, more importantly, what can we do about it? Because if we know that the top 1% owns 15% of the wealth in the world, like, how do we join them? And I can tell you, being in this is pretty damn cool, So let's talk about it. Why is it the case that some sports people are Olympic gold medalists, but others are just normal amateurs? Like, the difference between, like, Michael Jordan and you, like, let's say that you've been playing basketball for a year and you're all right at basketball, but then you take Michael Jordan, like, in his heyday, like, the difference is like night and day. It's like you're not even a basketball player anymore. Like, why is it that some artists are world class whilst others can't make a living? Why is it that some people are billionaires but other people are thousands of dollars in debt? Why do some consultants get incredible results but others mediocre? Like, why does this happen? In other words, why are some people great and others just average, good, or bad? Well, if you want to become great and you want to become wildly rich and successful, then we need to kind of answer this question. Because if you don't know what makes great, then you're either going to be average, good, or bad. And good isn't even that good. It's just, you're going to, like most people think that, like, good is like 100 grand a year. Like, that's considered a very, very good salary for most people. By the way, I apologize if you can hear my squeaky chair squeaking in the background. But anyway, moving on. So, like, people think that 100 grand a month, 100 grand a year is good. And, like, sure, it is compared to most people. But, like, I mean, I've made like 100 grand in a day before, and, like, it's possible. I can tell you that. So why would you want to make 100 grand a month, or 100 grand a year, when you could make 100 grand a month or 100 grand a day? Like, there's a big difference between great and good. And maybe you're happy with 100 grand a year. Like, that's absolutely fine. Like, if that's what your goal is, and which it probably is right now, like, it's a lot of money, and you can live a very, very happy life with that. But there's some people that make like 100 grand a minute. Like, I heard this statistic once that Bill Gates, if he dropped $1,000 on the floor, he wouldn't bother to pick it up, because in the time that he had, like, gone down to pick it up, he would have made that $1,000 back. And this was obviously when Microsoft's stock was soaring, right? But you get the point. So this is how it works. Like, 80% of people, get 20% of the results, and 20% of people get 80% of the results. Like, why the hell does this happen? People think this is unfair. And, a lot of people, as I'm sure you've seen on social media these days, they complain about the mega rich owning everything. They're like, oh, tax the rich, and, like the rich get richer and like screw rich people, like Mr. Burns this and Mr. Burns that, you know, from The Simpsons, it's evil dude that's like really rich and stuff. Like a lot of people think that like financial and economic inequality is unfair, and I understand why. But to figure this out, we need to understand the 80-20 principle. This is also known as the Pareto principle. Now, the 80-20 principle is basically a universal phenomenon. You might have heard of it before, Brownian intelligence points if you have, but it's a universal intelligence, there we go. It's a universal phenomenon, not a universal intelligence, whereby 80% of effects come from 20% of the causes. So this is also known as the vital few effect, but basically the Pareto principle creates an unequal relationship between inputs and outputs. And the Pareto principle basically explains why this happens, why things go exponential, and why life is so unfair, at least in the human eyes. So some examples. So 80% of wealth is owned by 20% of people, and 80% of customers buy from 20% of businesses. 80% of traffic can be found on 20% of the roads. 80% of food is produced by 20% of the farmers. 80% of work is done by 20%. I mean, you get the point, right? News coverage, 80% of the news coverage is based on 20% of the world's events. 80% of financial hatred is attributed to 20% of the billionaires. There's a lot of billionaires in the world, but there's only like a select few of them that get any hatred, right? 80% of your wardrobe is worn 20% of the time. And then the same thing, like 80% of Earth's population lives in 20% of the countries. And 80% of the country's population lives in 20% of the states, in like the US, for example. And 80% of a population of a state will live in 20% of the cities inside the state, and so on, right? So this occurs everywhere. Wherever there's like an input and an output, or a cause and effect, like at least one that we can measure numerically, like for example, 80% of the traffic jams occur during 20% of the daytime. So, between like 8 a.m. and 9 a.m., which is when everyone's going to work, and between 5 p.m. and 6 p.m. when everyone's leaving work. That's like, 2 hours a day. That's what, like 10, 20% of the day where 80 or 90% of the traffic's going to happen. And this occurs everywhere. And like, why does this happen? Why is cause and effect? Why is it unfair? Like, why do some people get filthy rich and other people are filthy poor? Like, why does that happen, right? Well, it happens in nature too. Because in the natural world, 80% of the fish live in 20% of the oceans, or at least species-wise. And in a forest, you'll find that 80% of the sunlight is absorbed by 20% of the plants, the ones that are at the top. And, in like a gorilla colony or any sort of, group species that lives together, 80% of the mates or the females will go to 20% of the males. And, not to be too controversial, but this is kind of the same thing with humans, right? 80% of the food is consumed by 20% of the species. 80% of health issues are experienced by 20% of people. So I'm sure like maybe one person, and they just seem to be riddled with every single health issue under the sun. Like where there's one, there's many. Like what the hell's going on here? 80% of the rain in the world falls in 20% of the countries. And my favorite example, which was actually found by Pareto, the guy who came up with this theory, he had like some pea pods in his garden. And he found that 80% of the peas that he could yield from his garden came from 20% of the pods. And the other thing that he observed, that the actual story, is he was doing like an analysis on the land ownership in Italy, because he's Italian, and he found that like 20% of like people, like landlords, owned 80% of the land. And then he just started seeing this thing everywhere, and it really is everywhere. Like this is like a law, it's like a force of nature. Okay, like I can guarantee right now that you guys watching this program, 80% of the results we get in this program will come from 20% of the people who go through it. And let me just pray that you're one of those 20%, which I'm sure you will be. So complaining about the mega rich owning a disproportionate amount of wealth is like complaining that a certain ocean has more biodiversity than the rest. It's just nature. Okay, so I know people think it's unfair, and I know people get mad about the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, but it's just the way the world works. Like, it doesn't matter how offended you get or how badly your ego is damaged. Getting upset at this is just like getting upset at like a lion eating a gazelle. Like getting angry about that. Like, oh, fuck that lion, like eating that. Like, what did that gazelle do to that lion? Like, it's just nature. It's just the way the world works. And you might not like it. Maybe you hate this premise, like the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Maybe you think it's evil to, accumulate money. And if you do, then you're in trouble because, well, you're never going to make it, because behaving out of alignment with something you believe to be true is very tough. But, maybe you think it's not fair. Maybe you think that people should be more equal and like money should be more distributed equally. And maybe you think that communism's a good idea. And I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole we're not getting into because I'm not going there. But you get the point, right? It's nature. We are biological machines. Like, we like to think that we're all developed and stuff as humans, but really we're just an extension of nature. And our economic machine, which is basically the economy, is a manifestation of the natural world. Like the economy kind of works the same way that like a jungle does. Like you've got competition, you've got supply and demand, you've got scarce resources, you've got all sorts of things that, you'd see in like a jungle or a forest or a certain microbiome. The same laws that govern that biome or that jungle or that environment naturally will seep over into the way the economy works and the way that we make money. So it's the same. So imagine complaining that 20% of countries get 80% of the rainfall. Like, this rainfall system is corrupt. And, the rainfall matrix is out to get us and the rainfall system is rigged. I demand high rainfall countries move their borders so low rainfall countries get more rainfall. Like complaining about the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, like it's the same thing. I know that you could make the argument like, yeah, but there must be a way to fix it. It's like, yeah, sure, you and whose army? What, Stalin's? That's not going to go very well. Millions and millions and millions of people are going to die. And that's what happened in communist Russia and Mao's China. Like, we've tried to level out in the 20th century. We've tried to level out financial equality, and it's resulted in the deaths of tens of millions of people. Because you can't fight nature. You just can't. Okay? Stupid. So when a phenomenon such as this, the 80-20 principle, is so common and apparent literally everywhere, it means that there must be a natural law somewhere to explain it. So there's a law, there's a rule, and if we can uncover this rule and understand it and line ourselves up with the way the natural world wants to manifest, then goddamn, we can do some damage. We can really, achieve some success here. There's no point in getting angry at 80-20. You can't beat it. Like, don't waste your energy. Like, getting angry at the 80-20 principle is like getting angry at a rock. You're not going to change anything. Like, the rock doesn't care about you or your feelings. So, like, you can't, like, it's not going to change, unless, sure, you can, like, throw it and try and break it and stuff, but besides the point. You can't beat 80-20. You can't beat it, nor can you demand the world change for you, but you can use it and join the winning side. So if you're the kind of person that has always complained about the rich getting richer, like, yeah, they do. And you can either be bitter about it and complain and do nothing, or you can just get rich. And then you can use that money that you've made to give to charity and, help poor people. This is something I just do not understand with this argument. Like, the rich get richer. Yes, they do. So figure out how to get rich. And if you really care about poor people, get rich so you can help them. That's how you help them. Because any other way is not going to work, because you're fighting actual law of nature. It's just like, it's the same thing as trying to fight natural selection. You can't. Like, I want to stop evolution. I want to stop gravity. Like, you can't. You have to behave in alignment with these things no matter how much they upset you. I'm offended at this gravity thing. Like, do you know, like, if I jump off this building, I'll die? Like, this gravity system is corrupt. I demand that gravity is removed. Like, you wouldn't say that about gravity because that's just stupid. And the same thing is true with the 80-20 rule. And just because there's some emotional dregs attached to the application of making money doesn't make me wrong. So feedback loops. Like, why on earth does this happen? How can there be such a massive discrepancy between input and output? Why is it so asymmetric? Like, how does this happen? What the hell's going on here? Well, it's all about feedback loops. So cause creates effect. And when the effect of a cause feeds back on itself to create more cause that caused it, then there is more cause causing more effect again and again on repeat. And this is a feedback loop. So the cause creates the effect then feeds back on itself to create the cause. And because we created more cause, we create more effect, and this thing spirals and spirals and spirals. And when this happens, a feedback loop is present. So with time, this loop compounds and basically flywheels is another word for it, creating some truly extraordinary and unbelievable results. This is why life isn't fair, okay? This is why the rich get richer. It's just feedback loops, because the more money you have, the more money you can make. And the more money that you can make and that you do make, the more money you have, which means the more money you can make. And then it just cycles round and round. So let's go through some examples. So an example of a feedback loop would be let's say you go to a comedy club and the comedian finishes their skit and they finish their talk. And one person starts clapping. And then because one person starts clapping, someone else starts clapping. And then because someone else started clapping, somebody else starts clapping. And it loops around until everyone's clapping. And then everyone's clapping, and then someone sits down and stops clapping. And then somebody else next to them sits down and stops clapping. And then because that person sat down, somebody else does. And then because that person did again, somebody else does, and then bang. And then suddenly everyone stops clapping. And then the same thing is true with, getting fit. So let's say you start working out. Well, the more you work out, the more you're going to want to eat clean, because otherwise it feels like a waste. And the more you eat clean, the more you're going to want to work out, because otherwise it feels like a waste. And so you work out and you eat clean, and because you're eating clean, you're working out more, and because you're working out more, you're eating cleaner, and then this thing just cycles. And the same thing is true with getting fat. So if you skip workouts, then you're more likely to eat bad, because you're like, well, I didn't go to the gym today, so what's the point in eating my 150 grams of protein? There's not much point. And then because you ate bad, you skip the next workout, and then because you skip the next workout, you eat bad again, and then it just flywheels and cycles and cycles and cycles. The same thing happened with COVID-19. So one person gets COVID, and then another person gets COVID because that person got COVID. And then because that person got COVID, another person gets it. And then it just cycles round into a vicious amplification loop. And this is how COVID just came out of nowhere and went bang, exponential. Started slow and then bang. And then the same thing is true with how COVID went away, or sort of how the infection rate died down, where basically we were like, okay, we'll do social distancing so this virus can't spread. So there was less contact, which meant less infections. And because there was less infections as a result of less contact, then we continued to social distance. And the more we continued to social distance, the less infections there were. And so the governments just continued to mandate, being locked in your house. I mean, I'm not getting into the political argument there, but they mandated the lockdowns and stuff, right? And the more they mandated the lockdowns, the less infections there were. And so the more the government locked us down, the less infections, until eventually, what happened? It apparently went away. And there was so little infections that we felt it was safe to go back outside and stuff. And it's up to you to form your political judgment on COVID. I couldn't really care less, to be honest, but you get the point, right? So things can spike up and then spike down. So positive feedback loops, also known as amplification mechanisms, they basically cause things to quickly exponentially spike and then quickly spike down just as fast as they spiked up. And it's kind of like this, right? So what happens is it's an exponential loop, right? So at the beginning, it's really slow, really slow. And then it's because of all these things are feeding back on each other, at a certain point of critical mass, it just goes bang, it explodes. So one person starts clapping, second person starts clapping, then you've got 4 people clapping, and you've got 8, and you've got maybe then you've got 10 people, and then you've got 15, and then because 15 people are clapping, suddenly 30 people start clapping. And then suddenly the whole room's clapping, real quick. And then, up here, 100 people clapping. One person stops, and then suddenly 3 people stop, and then suddenly all these, and then bang, 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 and it just goes down, So nothing can grow exponentially forever. Even the universe itself, which is exponentially growing by the second, as per the theory, will eventually stop growing and contract and shrink. And it will shrink exponentially, right? And if you don't believe me, well, you can look into this, not to give you too much of an existential crisis, but the heat death of the universe, also known as the Big Chill, which I think is one of the coolest scientific theory names I've ever heard in my life. But the heat death of the universe is basically is a theory that explains that the universe is eventually going to expand so much that it won't be able to anymore, because nothing can grow forever. It's kind of like an observable rule. Now, fortunately enough, we're not going to be around, and neither will any of our descendants for this, but it's true, so we don't have to worry about it. Now, the same is true with wealth, economic growth, countries, empires, companies, brands, etc. Everything that grows exponentially, with enough time applied, will contract and shrink just as fast as it grew. For example, the graphs below show the growth and decline of the Roman and British empires based on landmass or number of countries ruled. You'll find this phenomenon everywhere, right? So, for example, we've got the Roman Empire here, based on square kilometers or square miles of landmass. And we can see, minus 500, BC, and then, the Republic sort of starts around here, for any of you familiar with the Roman Empire. And then, around the time of sort of Julius Caesar and Pompey and Augustus, we have this big old spike. And then, we get like different emperors in, like Trajan or Hadrian or whatever. And, then Vespasian. And then suddenly, like, it kind of flattens off a little bit, and then bang, we just see this really quick decline. So what went up really quickly comes down pretty much just as fast. And then the same thing is true with the British Empire. So British Empire starts in, 1600s. And, it kind of grows and grows and grows and grows. And then we have, like, around the time of the Napoleonic Wars, like around here. And then just a huge quick spike, all the way up into, World War II. And then suddenly after World War II, like maybe 20 years later, just bang, just straight down. Like what went up really quickly went down way faster. And this is feedback loops, right? So with the British Empire, for example, like, one colony rebels and, gains their freedom from the British Empire, right? And then that rumor spreads to another colony, and then they rebel because another person rebelled, and then it just gets out of control. Now, you might then ask, well, what's the point in even trying? But my point is that, like, all of these graphs, it takes hundreds or thousands of years for anything to happen. So in your lifetime, you can build exponential wealth. That's fine. But your wealth is attached to an economic machine that in 500 years or 1,000 years or 200 years or whatever will very likely contract and, fall apart. Like the United States of America is another example. Like the growth of the United States of America and the growth of the economy, it doesn't last forever. Like if the universe is going to die, then so will the USA, and so will the UK, and so will all of these, Russia, China, all these countries eventually die. Now, fortunately enough, we don't have to concern ourselves with any of this because, like, it's all, like, the USA is only like 200 years old or whatever. So, it's going to be fine. Like, don't worry, I don't want to give you too much of a crisis here. Let's just stay focused on making money. But I'm making this point that, like, what goes up really quickly usually comes down really quickly. And the same thing is true with people that suddenly win the lottery. Like, you see people who have no experience with financial management, and they just suddenly become like multi-millionaires overnight, and then they spend that money usually just as quickly as they earned it or made it. They didn't really earn anything, to be honest. And that's how it happens. So let me give you a few more examples of positive feedback loops or amplification. And because this is why, this thing happens. This is why we have this big, whoosh all of a sudden. And this is why, 20% of the people in the world own 80% of the wealth. It's why, like, 80% of sunlight is absorbed by 20% of the trees. Because, if one tree starts absorbing just a little bit of sunlight, it's going to grow just a little bit bigger. And if it grows just a little bit bigger, it's going to absorb just a little bit more sunlight. And if it absorbs a little bit more sunlight, it's just going to grow a little bit bigger. And you just compound that over time, you've got a pretty damn big tree taking up a lot of damn sunlight. It's all about these feedback loops. And the same thing is true with money. And I'm going to give you some more examples here. So this is a huge one, and we're going to talk about this in the mindset module. If you believe you are successful, or you believe you can become successful, then you're going to become successful. Like, think about this for a second. Like, if you really believe in your heart of hearts this is going to work, then you're going to start creating the effect. Like, you're going to start building your foundations. You're going to start getting clients. You're going to start doing outreach and making money. And then when you become successful and you start actually making some money, then you're going to believe even more that you are successful. And the more you believe you are successful, the more successful you're going to become. And it's just going to go whoosh. And, then you're going to have one of these big exponential things. But it's going to take a year or two before that happens. And then, people buying a stock on the stock market. So let's take the Tesla stock, for example. If people buy it, then the price goes up. And if the price goes up, more people buy it. And then it goes woo, 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 and it feeds around itself. And then out of nowhere, people start selling the stock. And then, the price goes down, and then everyone starts selling it, and it goes up and down and up and down. And, another example is the Imperium Academy community. So people are in the community posting their wins, and you should do this. If you get a win, if you sign your first client or make some money, like, post your wins in the community, right? Just specifically business wins. No one wants to see your shirtless body transformation, trust me. as great as it may be, we're here to talk business, right? Not self-improvement per se. Anyway, so people who post their wins in the group. So some of you are going to do what I asked you to, and the 20% that will actually get results, and you're going to post pictures of your results and your clients and your bank accounts and money in the group. And the more people that post wins in the group, the harder the rest of everybody will work. And the harder everybody else works, the more results they're going to get, and the more results they're going to put in the group. And the more results that go in the group, the harder everybody works, and you just boom, boom, boom. This thing just goes round and round and round, and you build this amazing flywheel machine for client results that encourages people to do the work. This is why I'm just consistently stressing to you, remember this stuff and do the work. Remember this stuff and do the work. Information can only change your life if you remember it, and it will only change your life if you apply it. Do the work, do the work, do the work, right? For talking of which, funnily enough, doing the work, getting results. So you're going to do the work, get results. The more results you get, the more you're going to want to work. The more you're going to want to work, the more you work, the more results you get. And then it just goes round and round. Same thing is true with like going to a party. So if you're at a party and then people start leaving, then suddenly more people start leaving, and then before you know it, no one's at your party. Definitely didn't happen to me when I was a kid. I'm joking. Positive feedback. So panic and people running. So one person starts panicking and sprinting away from something, and then suddenly somebody else starts doing the same thing, because we are by nature, social proof animals, which means we just copy people without thinking, because it's the safer option, right? If you're in a mall and someone just starts sprinting away from something, you're probably going to run away without thinking too much about it, because it's biologically sound. There's no real argument against it, because it's like, well, if that person's running away from something, chances are there's something to run away from, and I'd rather take the risk of looking like an idiot than fuck around and find out. But anyway, the more people that are running, the more panic there is. And the more panic there is, the more people that run until everyone's running. And then, then you've got like a stampede. And this is how like mobs form. This is how protests form. This is how this is how things just go rapidly exponential. It's how empires are built. It's how countries grow. It's how businesses grow. It's how you can track like Facebook's users over time, like just flywheel, flywheel, flywheel. So some real-time examples for you here. And let me just do this quickly. So some real-time examples for you here on YouTube. So this is a Google Earth time lapse, and it's going to show you some of the biggest cities on Earth that have sort of been developed in like the last, 30 years, give or take, 40 years, 50 years, whatever. So 35 years, the urban population has grown by 2.3 billion people. So funny enough, this is where I am right now with Dubai. So we're in Dubai, and you can see 1984, there's 300,000 people in Dubai, okay? 35 years ago. Well, actually, this is 38 years ago, right? But anyway, so look, we can see like by 1990, so like 4 years later, a little bit of progress. And then, a couple of years after that, a little bit more progress. And then a little bit more progress, a little bit more. And like 10 years later, a little bit more, little bit. And then suddenly, like out of nowhere, this thing just goes bang. Like the Palm Jumeirah appears, which is where I live. Palm Jebel Ali appears, which is on the left. The marina appears, the islands appear, and this thing becomes like a metropolis, just like real quick. You can sort of see. And another example I'll give you here is the Pearl River Delta in China. So in 1984, this thing has got like, nearly 10 million people. And now this is a place in China that you've probably never heard of. It's got like 60 million people. Like the population of the UK fits into this thing. And so let's have a look at this. 1984, it looks a bit developed, right? There's a lot of farmland and stuff. There's a good river, good water source, good place for civilization to grow. And then just out of nowhere, slowly, like 10 years, looks kind of similar, not all that different, a bit of growth. And then like, bang, look at this. It just goes ballistic. 81 million people. How's that for exponential growth? Nearly 10xing a population. And then another example. This is Las Vegas in Nevada, right, in America. We start with 530,000 people, little town, kind of. Well, it's more than a town, really, but 35 years. Look at this thing, just growing. And, we've gone from, we've 4x, 5x the population. Another example for you, some bacterial growth. So what you can see here, a little bit into the time lapse, there's some little specks of bacteria here. So, it's linear. There's not much bacteria on this thing. The growth is slow. But as more bacteria grows, then more bacteria grows. Because the way bacteria grows is by duplicating itself, right? So, it just goes and goes and goes. And then suddenly out of nowhere, bang, like it's just like a colony. It just takes over the whole thing and there's just loads of bacteria, There's a story about an ancient king, and I don't think it's a true story. It's definitely not a true story. There's a kid, and this kid does the king a favor. I'm just going to make it up. Let's say the kid protects the queen from an assassin. Okay, and the kid goes to the king, and the king's obviously really grateful for this kid. Queen's grateful for the kid. Queen's alive, king's happy. The kid goes to the king's court, and the king says to the kid, "Whatever can I do to repay you? Anything that is within my kingdom, I will give you. Tell me what you want." And the kid's very smart, and what he does is he says to the king, "What I would like is for you to give me, 2 pieces of grain, or 2 pieces of gold. I want 2 pieces of gold, and what I want you to do for every single square on the chessboard, or on a chessboard, I want you to double how much you gave me before." And the king's like, "Done, granted." And as soon as that's done, the kid is now the king. Now why? Well, think about it. We go from 2 to 4. It's just 4 pieces of gold, not that deep. But then we go from 4 to 8, still not that deep. But then 8 to 16, and 16 to 32. Suddenly that gets a little bit out of hand. We go from 16 to 32, and then we go from 32 to 64, and then from 64 to 128, and we're not even done with the back row of the chessboard yet. I can't remember how many squares are on a chessboard. Maybe it's like 64, but just Google right now, 2 to the power of 64. That's like the whole universe. It's like these exponents, man, these power laws, they're dangerous, and they are viciously, willing to amplify anything you give them. So that's the story about the kid and the king, and how he takes over the kingdom, and that king was not a very smart king. The clearest example I can give you of feedback loops: how do you turn $1,000 into $120,000 without doing any work, with no effort, without doing anything except one thing? It's pretty simple. This here is a compound interest calculator. So if we take $1,000, okay, let's say you've got $1,000 right now, and let's say that we take a 60-year time horizon with an estimated interest rate of 7%. So what this means is that every year you're going to get a 7% return on your initial investment, which is kind of typical, because that's like the S&P 500 average return. You can do a 7% return pretty easily. Now, we're not going to account for tax or anything. It's going to compound annually. So it's just $1,000, right? Just $1,000. We're putting $1,000 in. It's 7% return of 60 years. No big deal, right? Well, if we calculate what happens, in 60 years, you'll have $57,000. And if you hold it for 61 years, it goes from 57 to 62. Then if we do just an extra 9 years, suddenly you've got $113,000. And let's give another example. Let's say that you put in $5,000 right now, and let's say every single month you're willing to put in $100. Not much, just you're going to put $100 in, every year. And let's say you give it 65 years, compounding it, let's just say an 8% return, just 8%, it's an extra percent, right? Calculate. Well, that's how $5,000 with a little bit of a $100 a month investment, that becomes $3 million over time. And we can see how this just compounds. And this is happening because of compound interest, which is basically a flywheel, which means that when you put $1 in and you get a small return on that dollar, then it loops back around and creates more of the money, and then it loops back around again and creates more. So if we put just $1 in, no investment additionally, we give that dollar 100 years, it's 7% return, what do we get? Yeah, so $1 becomes $867. So I know you might not, well, I'd love for you to be here in 100 years, but let's be honest, right? This is a pretty interesting thought experiment. And this shows the power of compound interest, and this shows the power of feedback loops. You can turn $1 into $900 if you're just willing to wait. Now, obviously you're not going to wait 100 years, but you get the point, right? So this is what I mean when I say things take time, okay? It is actually possible to create these ridiculous exponential effects if you just stick to them. So if you put this $1,000 in and it's like, it's so funny. Like, let me just explain this again because this reiterates my point. So, let's say you put $10,000 in, okay? And you're going to allow it to compound for 70 years with an interest rate of 7%, right? Well, okay, in 70 years, if you put 10K in, you'd have $1.1 million. This is real math, right? Let's say that you put this $10,000 in and, you get 7 years in, or you get 6 years in to your investment. And you're like, I'm not a millionaire yet. I invested 5 years ago. This isn't working. And then you just take the money out. You're an idiot. Like, this is just what people do. Like, they don't give it enough time to get to like in this point where it just goes whoosh and just flies up. So changing your niche or changing the problem you solve people or changing to a different business model after 3 or 4 months of trying consulting is exactly the same as putting $10,000 in the stock market in the S&P 500 or putting $10,000 in a savings account with a low interest rate and removing it after a year because you're not a millionaire yet. It's exactly the same premise, okay? So don't do it. Now, we have positive feedback loops, which is obviously these things that create exponential results. I'm also going to make you aware of this, although they're not that important to understanding how to get exponential effect. We also have negative feedback loops. So positive feedback loops, they exist to amplify a cause away from a base. So like we're really trying to see some massive growth. But negative feedback loops attempt to regulate and control systems towards a base. So negative feedback loops exist to maintain the status quo. So for example, like a negative feedback loop could be a air conditioning unit in your house. So let's say you've got a room and you set the air conditioning to 20 degrees Celsius. If the room gets too hot, then the air conditioning will cool down the air and bring it down, but then it will overshoot. And if it gets too cold, then it will increase the heat and then it will balance out and maintain this degree of 20 degrees. This is exactly how rocket guided missile systems work as well in the military. Is they have a target and then the military will shoot the sort of autonomous guided rocket, and the rocket will adjust its course accordingly in the air in accordance to the coordinates it's trying to hit and the coordinates of where it is now. And so this is how you get these sort of AI rockets, which are kind of terrifying, that can use negative feedback to achieve a point of stasis or maintenance to hit a target. Same thing is true for systems in the body. So we have homeostasis, which is you might be familiar with from biology class, where you have your brain as a sensor. If you get too cold, then you shiver, and that brings your temperature back up to 37 degrees internally, which is where enzymes are catalyzed and we remain healthy and alive. 37.5, I think it is, I can't remember. But then if we get too hot, if you sit in a sauna, for example, and that's the stimulus, then you'll start to sweat and you'll start to pant to try and cool yourself down. And that's what dogs are doing when they're panting, is they're trying to cool themselves down, right? This happens with all of your neurochemistry as well. This happens with your hunger hormones. It happens with your sleep hormones. It happens with your digestion. It happens with your lungs. Like if you right now like breathe really quickly and like try and hyperventilate, then what your body's going to try and do is try and slow your breathing down so you don't die from oxygen poisoning. Although I don't know that's even a thing, to be honest, but you get the point. So if a system's in decline, like for example the Roman Empire in 135 AD, and there is a negative sentiment attached to the decline, like if something bad is happening, like and you perceive it to be like a bad thing, that does not mean it's a negative feedback loop. Okay. The negative in terms of feedback loop and negative in terms of sentiment are two very different words. Okay, if things are exponential, it's always positive. So if you're seeing an exponential curve up or down, then what you're observing is a positive feedback loop, typically. Now you could say it's a negative feedback loop because it's like a maintenance thing and it kicks in, but you kind of get the point, right? So the point I'm making here is that positive or negative in terms of feedback denote the direction instead of an emotional sentiment. So positive feedback loops, we're moving away from something. Negative feedback loops, we're moving towards something, okay? Just because the Roman Empire declined, it was a positive feedback loop that did it, not a negative one. So the sentiment is detached from the meaning of the feedback loop. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, don't worry about it, but it doesn't really matter too much. I wanted to just tell you. So now let's talk about second order consequences. So now that you're starting to build your understanding of this wonderful world and how exponential things occur and why things happen, let's discuss this pretty crazy thing that, like, if you get this, man, like, my goodness, does life suddenly start, this thing, like, if you can learn from this video and if you can learn this knowledge and remember this knowledge and learn to think in second order consequences, you will beat a lot of people in life. You'll become very successful. So let's dive into it. So actions have consequences. We know this to be true. Cause, effect. Action, consequence, cause, effect. Have you heard this before? You've probably heard this phrase before where, like, when you're a kid, you'll do something bad and then your mum or your dad will be like, oh, Timmy, actions have consequences. And that's basically you being grounded, right? Well, if you run someone over, then you're going to prison. If you cut your leg, then you're going to bleed. If you make cold calls, you're going to make sales. Action, consequence, cause, effect. But here's the real kicker that no one understands. Actions have consequences, but consequences have consequences. And if that's not a pin drop moment for you, you need to pay attention, because consequences of consequences have consequences to infinity. This is something that you need. I know it might seem like you're a bit like, what the hell? I don't get it, but it will become clear when I give you an example. So these consequences are called second order consequences. And second order consequences, this is how billionaires think. This is how, like, really intelligent genius, idiosyncrasy in business or science or anywhere, these guys, they think in second order consequences. So every individual action you take, everything you do, everything, with no exception, no matter what, no matter how trivial, will set off a chain reaction of consequences through time into the future that will dictate how your life ends up. Now, this is also known as the butterfly effect or the law of sensitive dependence on initial conditions. And what it means is that you doing one thing right now, if we apply enough time to that action and the consequences of that action, you can end up with a completely crazy thing. Like, the butterfly effect is called the butterfly effect because the theory is that if a butterfly flaps its wings in one corner of the world, then on the other side of the world, it can cause like a tornado or something like that. And biologically, that might not be accurate, but against second order consequences, it can actually make sense. So actions set trajectories. So a trajectory is basically a line of direction of which someone is on, okay? So, for example, if you are leaving your house to drive to your grandmother's, then you are on a trajectory to go and see your grandmother. If you are in university and you want to become a doctor, then you are on a trajectory towards becoming a doctor. A trajectory is essentially a journey, and your actions set your journeys. Trajectories have sentiment, and they are either negative or positive. So a trajectory is positive if it helps you achieve, progress towards your goal. So trajectories manifest as consequences, okay? And for a trajectory to exist, there has to be time, there has to be an initial action and a consequence. And so what happens is the initial action is taken, i.e. calling your grandmother to go and to see if she's free. And then the consequences that manifest from that initial action are find keys, open door, get in car, turn car on, reverse out of drive, drive, stop at traffic light, swear at someone who just cut me off, continue driving. All life is a chain of events, and one event creates the next one. If you're at a traffic light and you run the red and then someone crashes into you, that happened because something else happened. It's cause and effect, right? So consequences along a positive trajectory make you progress from your baseline towards your goal. And consequences along a negative trajectory make you regress from your baseline away from your goal. And your baseline is basically your current situation. And your goal is what you want. So 10K a month, millionaire, healthy, good family, whatever, financial freedom. And this is how it looks, right? So trajectories, obviously your visits to your grandmother might not become exponential, right? That's not my point. But when it comes to business or health or family or relationships or financial freedom, we'll talk about finance specifically. specifically, a trajectory can be everything, but like it can really be exponential. So we have the initial action here represented by these little circles. And a positive trajectory is where we take an action in the moment that triggers a chain of events that become exponential and help us achieve our goal. And it doesn't always have to be exponential, right? You can have a linear, more straight line here. But on the flip side, we have one action that's bad, and that will trigger a chain of events that will send us down to hell. And really, like, I can't stress enough, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your actions. And the quality of your actions is determined by whether or not you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. It's very simple to have a good, happy life. Just don't do stupid shit and do smart shit. Like, it's really not that tricky when you think about it. We all don't determined by whether or not you're doing is determined by really, like, I can't stress enough, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your actions. And the quality, stress enough, the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your actions. And the quality of your actions is determined by whether or not you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. It's very simple to have a good, happy life. Just don't do stupid shit and do smart shit. Like, it's really not that tricky when you think about it. We all overcomplicate it, but it's really just this. And so this is how consequences work. And the key is in the word. So when you think about a consequence, like, it's a sequence. It's a sequence of events that happen as a result of the ones previous to them happening. And so what we can observe here is what we would call second order consequences in real time. So we have an initial action which triggers a first order consequence or an effect. And that effect becomes the cause to create a second effect. And then that second order consequence creates a third order consequence. And then a fourth order consequence creates a fifth order consequence, which creates the sixth and the seventh all the way to X. And this is to infinity. This is to the end of the universe. This is until the Big Bang comes to a close with the heat death of the universe. And what happens here is, like, something happens, something else happens because it happened, and then this cause and effect chain just rumbles down. And this is why this module is called six-figure fusion. It's because this is how nuclear reactions happen. And I'm not actually that well versed in nuclear physics, but my understanding of chain reactions and nuclear fusion reactions is when, like, one thing causes another thing, which causes another thing and another thing and another thing until it just goes absolutely exponential. And so what we can observe here as well with these arrows denoted is feedback loops. So some consequences will feed back on previous consequences and amplify the severity of the trajectory, speeding it up and amplifying it, and then recreating consequences. So, if I do the initial action, right, and that creates the first order consequence, and that creates the second and the fourth, then by the time I get to the fourth order consequence, this consequence might feed back and reinforce the first order consequence, which creates more of this, which creates more of this, and more of this, and more of this, to create more of this. And this is how your life gets really good really quickly or really bad really quickly. And same thing here. So we've got negative and we've got positive. So negative consequences and negative trajectories, they take you away from your goal. This is where you descend into chaos, the abyss, and hell. This is how people end up homeless. This is how people end up in crippling debt. And ultimately, this is how people end up doing terrible things like committing suicide and self-harm. Like, when your life is so bad that you feel that you have to physically hurt yourself to justify your damn existence to the world, it's the product of this, right? And I don't want to reduce someone's existential, terrible suffering down to a simple little diagram with a few boxes. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to make a point. This is how it happens. And on the flip side, like if you have a fantastic life, like if you live where you want, you have financial freedom, you've got the wife you want, the kids you want, the boyfriend you want, girlfriend you want, whatever, you've got an audience, people like you, you're doing meaningful work. Like, I love my life, for example. I'm really happy with where I am, and I have a very good, meaningful life, and I'm on a meaningful trajectory towards more. And that's just happening because I've done enough of these good initial actions, and I've avoided the bad ones. And I've just given it like 7-8 years. It's amazing what can happen with time. And the exciting thing is I'm I'm still just getting started. Like with my income and stuff, like I'm making like $10 million a year, $20 million a year nearly. And like, you know, or 10 million right now, but we're pretty much on the cusp of getting to 20 pretty soon. And like, I'm just getting started. Like I've no doubt that with enough time elapses, I'll be a billionaire. Like I will, because like if you take, you know, if you do this interesting thing here, right? And I'm not going to tell you specifically what my net worth is because that's personal, but you know, let's say that we take, you know, well, I'm making $10 million a year right now, right? So let's just say that for argument's sake, that's all profit, which it's not, by the way, but let's just say that, you know, I've got $10 million in cash and I'm not confirming or denying that's how much I have. I'm just giving you an example, right? So let's say we take $10 million, which I think is 10 million, like this. Is that definitely, hang on, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so we take $10 million. And so I'm now 27, right? So let's say that I want to see where I'm at when I'm like, I don't know, 87, right? So another, it's been a long video, guys. let's do 60 years, right? Be 87. And let's say I've got an estimated interest rate of 7.5% because I've got some financial intelligence. And let's say that I continue contributing. Let's just say with a random number in a bank account right now of $10 million, like, okay, calculate. Well, by the time I'm 87, I'll be worth $766 million. And this assumes that I don't make any more. Now, I'm not saying this is how much money I've got. It might be more, it might be less. It's up for you to decide, right? Well, I'd be a little bit disappointed if it was less, but you get the point, right? Anyway, moving on from me being a dick. So, you know, this is going to happen. Like, if I just take this money and achieve this return and wait for this long, I'll be worth $760 million. This assumes I make no more money, right? This assumes that I don't make any more money from this business. No one else buys my thing ever. Like, you know, let's say that I make one $10,000 a month sale to contribute to this. And I calculate that. Like now I'm worth another 100 million. So anyway, you get the point. Works pretty well. And that's that. So this is how you can visualize these second order consequences, right? So, you know, if we take our baseline here, which is sort of where we are right now, then we have our initial actions, okay? And the initial action will create the first order consequence, which will create the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, and the eighth. And, you know, it might not be until consequence 6 that things start to really tick up. We have time here. And the key is that you let these consequences unfold and you give them enough time. So, you know, if you're on a positive trajectory by starting a business or something, then the key is just don't quit and don't switch. Just keep doing the initial action, keep working, give it time, and do not quit. And on the flip side, if you're going down a bad trajectory and you feel like your life's not on track and you're going down a bad path, then hopefully you're not too far gone, because this is when, like down here, like this sort of exponential curve, this is when people get like depression that is so bad that they feel like they have to end their lives, or, you know, this is when like you're really in like hell. And you can climb out of here. Like, trust me, you can. I've seen people do it, and it's the most miraculous, wonderful thing ever. But you want to try and avoid having to do that. So if you're on this negative trajectory and you think, God damn, like I don't like where I'm headed, just know that if you don't stop doing all this crap before it's too late, there's going to be a tipping point in a cliff that your life falls off, and it will happen faster than you can possibly expect. It will come out of nowhere and it will slap you in the face, and it's not a good thing. It really isn't. I've seen it happen to a lot of people. Now we can visualize this with something pretty insane called a consequence map. So consequences have consequences. Actions have consequences. Consequences have consequences. And what we can do is we can actually map the consequences of terrible, stupid behaviors and decisions. So here's a consequence map I made for one bad initial action of getting an Xbox for Christmas. So you can replace getting an Xbox with, you know, downloading TikTok or watching pornography or trying drugs for the first time or even ordering a burger. And you can see how messy this thing gets. So consequences, they're not just linear chains where like one cause will create one effect. Like what usually happens is one cause will create lots of effects, and those lots of effects will fan out into lots more effects. And it's kind of like an infection, like this thing just spreads. So let's explore this, shall we? So let's say that you get an Xbox gifted to you for Christmas. Okay, this is the initial. It might not even be your fault. You might not have even gone to buy the damn thing. Maybe your auntie was just like, "Hey Timmy, here's an Xbox for you," right? Well, your auntie's just done you dirty as far as I'm concerned, although bless her, she had your best interest at heart. But okay, so let's talk about this. You get your Xbox for Christmas. And this is basically the initial action. This is the original cause. Now, what happens is, okay, well, you start playing the Xbox. You're like, I'm just going to play the Xbox an hour a day on the weekends. Then you start playing every day because, like, no one can just do an hour a day of Xbox. Trust me, even I've tried. It doesn't bloody work. So you start playing every day. And then because you're playing every day, you play for more hours and you play more. And then you actually start getting good at the game. And then what happens is, because you're good at the game, you start frying your dopamine receptors, and the only way you can feel stimulation is with the game. And then you've wired your brain for instant gratification. So like, now you're just like completely, like you just, all you want to do is play this game and get immediate dopamine. And then the thing is now you're struggling to work. Because you're so used to getting dopamine from your game, like you can't sit down and focus and get enough dopamine. And because you've wired your brain for instant gratification, well, now you're going to start snacking whilst you're playing. And then you're going to buy these stupid G Fuel gamer drinks that, are going to ruin your gut health and adrenal glands. Then you're going to get anxiety and brain fog. Then because of this, you're going to stop exercising. Then you're going to gain weight. And then you're going to get fat, And then what's also going to happen here is if you start playing every day, you're going to play for more hours. And then you're going to spend less time with your girlfriend. She's going to get mad at you. And then she's going to start disturbing you during your working hours because she knows it's easier to distract you from your work than from your Xbox because you're glued to the thing. And then because she starts disturbing you and she's angry at you, you start playing more Xbox to forget that she's angry at you. And then she leaves you. And then you enter hell because it's not good. And then because you get good at the game, you start making friends that are also good at the game. And then you start hanging out with these people. And then you start spending money on skins and items to pathetically compete with them for digital status. And then you're poor because you started buying pixels. And then you go through hell. Or, another thing that happens is like, what have we got here? So you get good at the game, and then what starts happening is you start staying up late because you're on this game late. Like your willpower's at its weakest past 11 p.m., man. So you start staying up late, playing late. Then you destroy your circadian rhythm, which is your sleeping pattern. And then you start doing dumb shit because you're up at 2 a.m. chasing dopamine. It's like in between your games, you start watching porn or doing stupid stuff. And then you get new addictions. And then what that does is it fries your dopamine receptors even more, which means that you have to start playing more, which means you have to start staying up later, which means you get more addicted. And this thing just goes around. And then also what happens is because you get good at the game, you get a sense of progress in the game, right? And then you have a lack of desire for sense of progress in life. Like if you're getting good at a game, this is what happens to people who are gaming. Like your brain has a process, like it has a progress striving mechanism. And if you're getting your progress striving mechanism, if that thing's being satisfied by a video game, you're not going to seek it in business. Like I don't get this. People that play Sims, for example, like you're building this dream digital life, build your own bloody life, right? Anyway, you can tell I get passionate about this because this one got me. This one had me for a long time. Like all of these consequences you're seeing on the screen, with a few exceptions, some of the obvious ones that didn't happen are real. These happened to me. These literally happened to me. I'm not even joking to you. I mapped this out from personal experience, right? So sense of progress in game. And then you lack desire for a sense of progress in your life because you're getting everything you need from the game. So then you stop working and your business fails and you have to get a job you hate. And all of this leads to, entering hell with enough time applied because now you're poor because you spent all your money on the game. Now you've lost your girlfriend because she doesn't like you because you're playing this game. You've also gained weight because of this Xbox. And now you have to get a job you hate because your auntie bought you an Xbox for Christmas. So you're in hell. Then you blame the world and become bitter and resentful. Then you bring everybody else around you down and you become this miserable sack of existence that no one wants to be around. So you become isolated and lonely. Then you lose friends and family members and then you get depressed. And then all roads lead to Rome. Like you do something heinous and terrible, right? This is how your life works. And like, I'm hoping this is just your like, holy shit. Like I'm hoping that's the reaction you've just had here. Like, I'm not joking. Like I had this thing for a while. This is when I was younger. I was growing up like 15, 16 before I started a business, like 17 when I really kicked off. This was my life. like things really sucked. I had this like depression, pain and suffering. Like I never had like terrible suicidal thoughts or anything, but you know, apply enough time to something like that and that's where you can end up, man. And so like this all happened because I bought a gaming computer when I was like 13. And that happened because of some other stuff when I don't even know. It all comes back like from the second you're born, like these things just unfold. Like you being born, you being inflicted on the world is going to unload a chain of events that can either be very miserable or very happy. And so, you know, this is just one example. You could replace this. And this is, by the way, this is by no means an extensive list of all the consequences. There are thousands that I haven't thought to name here, but I wanted to give you an example, right? And they all feed back on each other as well. So, like, for example, destroy circadian rhythm and staying up late. Well, now this is going to make my girlfriend even more mad because now I'm not even going to bed with her, like, and I'm getting into bed like 4 a.m. and she's asleep and going to work, which means that I play more and then my circadian rhythm gets worse. Like it just cycles. All of these things feed back on each other and they create this absolute web of chaos and mess that you need to learn to clean up. All because Auntie Joan bought Timmy an Xbox for Christmas. So this happens on the flip side though, because on a more positive note, here's a consequence map for signing up for a gym. Now, you could map the same thing out for doing this program or buying Easy Grow or any example, you know, that I would deem positive. And these should be connected by arrows, so I apologize they're not. But so you sign up for a gym, all right? You're out of shape because, you know, you've been on this Xbox train for the last 7 years and now you're depressed and you want to fix it and you've hit rock bottom and a point of critical mass. So, you know, you sign up for a gym and you take your sorry ass into the gym and you start working out 2 days a week. And then you feel good, like just a little bit, a tiny bit good. You start making marginal progress. So you start training more. And then like, you know, you feel even better. So you train more and then that feeds back around. And then you get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm going to get a coach. You get a coach and, you know, your coach fixes your nutrition, which means that you feel good and make more progress, which means that you train more, get more coaching and fix your nutrition more and it feeds back around. Then you have a big leap of progress, this big exponential leap. You know, 6 months later, you've gone from, you know, you saw a picture of yourself when you were at a wedding 6 months ago, and now you've lost like, you know, 10 kilos and you look incredible, right? That's fantastic. So then, like, you've had this big leap of progress. Now you understand delayed gratification. You get smarter. You start cleaning up bad habits in your life, right? And this thing then feeds into, you know, you becoming more disciplined or whatever, right? And then another example. So you have a big leap of progress here because of these things. And then your friend, your best friend, sees this progress and they join the gym. And then you train with your friend. And then you become accountable, which means you train more and fix your nutrition even more. And then it all feeds back around and more of your friends join the gym. And then you spend more time together improving. And then maybe after 6 months of training with this person, you start a business with them. And then maybe you make money and go on to be a millionaire with them. You know? Like the same thing is true here, right? So maybe you fix your nutrition after this chain. Then your gut health improves, mental health improves, confidence improves. Then you become more socially popular, right? Then you start speaking to more people, you get better sales skills, you get more clients, you become a millionaire. Or maybe your confidence improves as a result of these things. And the second order consequence of that improving is you actually approach a girl for once in your life, and then you date that girl. And then she becomes your girlfriend, then she becomes your wife, then you have 4 kids and 9 grandkids. All because you went to the gym. Like obviously the approaching a girl happened because the confidence improved, but the confidence only improved because the mental health improved, because the gut health improved, because you fixed the nutrition, because you got a coach, trained more, felt good, worked out, and signed up for a gym. All roads lead to Rome. Everything happens for a reason, and what you want to learn to do is try and isolate the thing at the bottom of it. Like, primary example for you. 7 years ago, I received a Facebook message on Facebook Messenger from a man called Baudouin Borgans. He's my business partner now, and we've made tens of millions of dollars together. You know, we make $10 million a year, as I've said. Maybe I've said that too much at this point, but like, he's like a brother to me now. We live together. He's like my best friend. He's like brother till I die. Brother from another mother, as far as I'm concerned. To use a less cringy phrase would have been more appropriate. But Bo messaged me on Facebook 7 years ago, before I was anything, before really he was anything. And he just messaged me trying to sell me some funnels, some service delivery agency funnels. And I was like, I bought them. Best decision I ever made, right? You know, I bought them, and then I added Bo to a group chat with some other agency owners. And then I started talking to Bo, and then I started doing sales calls for him, and he started doing service delivery for me. and apply 7 years to the equation, and now we've got like the biggest info business in the space, all because of one Facebook message. And I mean, hopefully I live long enough to see, 90, 100 years old. That'd be great, right? And I can't wait to see the 7 millionth order consequence of Bo messaging me on Facebook. This is how the world works, okay? Now what we have is feeder actions. So most consequence trajectories have a feeder action. So the feeder action is the thing you do daily to sort of feed all of this stuff. So second order consequence maps, these second order consequences, they're like a hungry beast. They need to be fed. And the thing that feeds them is your daily habits, okay? And these are called feeder actions. So for example, playing the Xbox, going to the gym, outreach in the business, etc. So feeder actions are actions that, in our case as humans, manifest physically as behaviors that we complete routinely, also known as habits, okay? So think about it. If you, like, the feeder action for this one is basically start playing every day, like, or more hours, more play. Like actually playing the Xbox is the feeder action. If you stop playing every day, then suddenly you cut off the oxygen for all of these second order consequences. And they'll still exist for some time, but like suddenly what will start happening? Let's say you stop playing every day. So you stop the habit. Well, then you lose your gaming friends. Good fucking riddance, right? They're gone. Also, you're going to bed on time now because you haven't got anything to do in the evening. You're just going to sleep instead. If you catch it early enough, you can actually start spending time with your girlfriend again and cut this off. And then also you're going to start wanting to work more. Like all of these consequences, they come from one specific behavior that you just routinely repeat every single day. And the thing is you live this life and you live all these nasty consequences without attributing them to the damn thing that you're doing. Like most people are doing these feeder actions and feeding their entire misery map of misery without even realizing it. You have to isolate these things, right? Same thing for this. Like the feeder action for all of these positive benefits is training more and going to the gym, and showing up. So, if you want to stop a negative trajectory, if you want to, if you're on this thing here, and you're downsloping and you want to stop it, then just stop doing the thing that feeds it. Stop the initial action. The initial action is the cause, like the Xbox being bought or signing up for the gym membership. But usually the second or third order consequence of the initial action is the thing that feeds it. For example, like the initial action of becoming a heroin addict would be trying heroin for the first time or hanging out with someone that does heroin regularly, right? That's the initial action. You can't really repeat that thing because it's a one-time action. But eventually, if you're shooting up heroin, like you're doing that every day, then that's feeding into your miserable existence, right? And that's a bad thing. So if you want to accelerate a positive trajectory, you increase the feeder action. So the feeder action for the gym example is training more, and the feeder action for the negative trajectory is more hours, more play. So avoid the bad initial actions and encourage the good ones. It's like snakes and ladders, just avoid the damn snakes. So let me give you a couple of examples, right? So really in life, it's more about avoiding this than it is trying to seek this. Like your success and the money you make and the quality of your life will come way more from trying to get rid of bad things than it will trying to add good things. Because it doesn't matter how much you try and start a business. Like if you're playing the Xbox 8 hours a day, like there's no point, right? Well, there's a point. There's always a point to trying to improve, but the easiest way you improve by subtracting things. But that's a story for another day. So a few examples. So recently I was at dinner in Dubai, okay? No, I wasn't in Dubai, I was in London. And I met a friend of a friend who was really fun to be around. Like one of those proper, charismatic people, amazing people who you want to hang around. Like they were fantastic. I loved them to bits. But I found out after a few hours, this person was heavily into drugs, right? So I was like, oh, here's a great person who I really like, who I want to be friends with. And then I found out they were into drugs. And I saw this drug thing, like, okay, person into drugs coming into contact with me. Knowing where that heads, without judging them, I cut them off and never spoke to them again. Just ruthlessly didn't text them back. My friend who wanted to rearrange the dinner was like, oh, I'll bring this person. I was like, please don't. They were like, why? I was like, I don't like the drug thing. And they were like, oh, that's rude. You're judging them. You're being mean. I was like, no, I'm just protecting my consequence maps. Because like, I know my personality. Like I've never done drugs before. I've never done like hardcore class A, class B drugs, anything like that. And I never will. I'll never touch anything like cocaine or heroin because like, I just know where that sort of thing leads. Like this person was fun. They would have been a great friend. They would have been really fun. They made me laugh and like I was making them laugh and it's great. But as soon as I found out that they were like cocaine addict, gone out of my life. Goodbye. No empathy, no sympathy, gone. Because map that thing out. If you start hanging out with someone every day who takes cocaine, like you're going to be tempted to do cocaine. You're probably going to end up doing it. You apply like 3 years of inadvertent social pressure to your life and drugs, like you're going to cave. And if not, like, you're going to, something bad's going to happen. Like you're going to get stopped by the police and they're going to have it in their pocket and it's in your car. So now you're a drug dealer and you go to prison. Like it's just not fucking worth it. Same thing if you've got a friend that drinks a lot. Same thing if you've got friends that like all they do is play video games. Like people are a huge one, and you should be willing to cut them loose unless they're like, you know, close family or like a really best friend that you really want to fix, or like your brother or your sister or your mum or your dad. With those exceptions, I am absolutely ruthless with who I let into my life. Another example, which is quite funny actually. So I moved into this house in Dubai about a year ago, bang on a year ago now, in August last year. And my house manager, the guy estate agent house manager, sort of the person who was helping us with the house deal, they offered like a little favor, as you do when you spend a stupid amount of money on houses and rents and stuff. They offered to set up smart TVs in our bedrooms. So me and Bo moved into this house, and the house manager was like, hey, just as a favor to all tenants, we set up these smart TVs in the bedrooms. Like, we haven't done it yet since you moved in because we didn't know which rooms you were going to take and stuff, so let us know. They were like, look, we'll set them up. You've got all the streaming services. It's all free. Like, it's all paid for. You've got Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, Amazon Video, Netflix, like YouTube, everything's on there. As soon as I heard that, like, I was like, that sounds great. But then I thought about it and I was like, nope. Because I mapped out the consequence trajectory and quickly shut it down. So like, just think about it for a second. Like, you know, like having a television in my bedroom that will show me any movie, or because it literally had everything on it, like everything. Having a TV in my room that will show me any movie or show or video I ever want to see ever, that's not a good thing, because then I'm going to start watching the damn thing. And I said to this guy, I was like, oh, I don't want it. He was like, but it's free. I was like, it's not free. The cost is me watching it. Like, if I have that in my room, that could cost me like $10 million a year. You know, like I start Game of Thrones and then suddenly I'm like waking up in the morning and turning the TV on, or, you know, and then it's just like these things you just got to watch out for, man. And this guy was adamant. He was like, but everyone who moves into these houses we do it for everyone. It's free. I was like, it's not free. He was like, what do you mean? I was like, it doesn't cost me any money, but it can cost me my whole business. Like, you just don't know. Like, me getting a smart TV in my bedroom, like, that could lead to me like quite literally killing myself. And I know how ridiculous that sounds. But it could result, okay, let's not use killing yourself, it's quite a terrible example, but having a TV in my room could result in the failure of my business. I don't know. It's better to not, because this is what happened. Like, would you think of this? Like, when your auntie buys you an Xbox for Christmas, like, all of this stuff is going to manifest itself over like a 5 or 7 year time horizon. It might not. I'm sure some of you have an Xbox and have a perfectly fine life, but you have to just watch this thing like a hawk. Like, I mapped it out. I was like, TV in room, right? What's the first order consequence of that? Okay, well, I'm going to watch the damn thing. Then I'm watching it led down. Then I'm watching it at night, which means that I'm going to go to bed later. That means that I'm going to get less sleep. You know, that means that I'm probably going to spend less time in the gym in the morning. You just map it and you'll see, you know. So the fastest way to know if an action is going to get you on a positive or negative trajectory is how good it feels in the moment. So the question then becomes like, well, Charlie, how do I know if an action is good or bad? Like, how do I know what is a snake and what is a ladder? Well, it's really about how it makes you feel in the moment. So if doing the action brings you pleasure now and pain later, then it's bad, right? So anything that gives you instant gratification is bad. And if the action brings you pain now and pleasure later, it's good. And that's delayed gratification. So the more it sucks, the better it is for you usually. So if you have the choice today between watching Six Figure Fusion and sitting and watching, you know, I don't know, some random Twitch streamer disrespect women for 3 hours, like one of those, like, I'm not going to say that's a good thing, but like one of those things you might want, you might, like, let's just say stream playing video games, right? To use a less political example. So there's 2 things you could do right now. You could go and watch a streamer play Minecraft, or you could sit down through a 3-hour painful business video. Like, well, the 3-hour business video that you're watching right now, or however long this thing is, I don't know, kind of sucks to watch right now because you got to pay attention and write stuff down. And like, you could be watching a streamer play Minecraft and that sounds really fun right now. But the thing is with the streamer playing Minecraft is it brings you pleasure now and it feels good now, but it brings you a little bit of pain later because you go to bed that night like, shit, I wish I'd watched that video. God damn, why am I such an idiot? And then you do it all again the next day, right? So wherever you can in life, you're looking for delayed gratification. Every day you wake up with the choice to take instant gratification actions or delayed gratification actions. Like, what are you going to have for lunch? What are you going to have for dinner? Are you going to have like some, Deliveroo, instant food, like junk foody thing? Or are you going to eat something clean and healthy that you know is good for you? Because the junk food will feel great now, but at 4 a.m, it probably won't feel too good. When you've eaten something bad that doesn't agree with you because there's so much grease and crap in it. But if you eat like a salad now, it kind of just sucks. Just a salad. You're like, oh, I don't really want this. But then like at 4 a.m, you're not suffering, right? So with your consulting business, you have 4 main feeder actions that delay gratification. So remember, this is all about isolating these feeder actions. These are things that we can do every single day, like habits that we can perform, behaviors that we can manifest using our body to feed the consequences we want to feed. Because this map, this is a hungry beast. The second you stop training, all of these things start falling apart. Like, you need to consistently maintain these things. The key is really consistency, right? So the main feeder action, if you're wondering to go from 0 to 10K a month, the main feeder for this is cold outreach. So cold emails, cold calls, cold DMs. Like outreach is a term used to describe you messaging, calling, or emailing people in your niche to see if they have the problem that you have the solution for. So outreach is basically you trying to get clients, right? That's the action. That is the most important feeder action you can do to get to 10K a month or even 100K a month. Okay. Sometimes it can also be making content as well, but we need to get customers. So that's the feeder action. So once you're set up, once you've got your foundations, your mindset, your expertise, your sales skills and stuff, like you should be doing outreach all day, every day. Like if you're not doing outreach all day, every day, then you're not feeding your trajectory properly. So starting a business is like, you can map out the consequences of that. And, for as long as you feed the business, and what I mean by feeding the business is consistently doing outreach, which means getting, more interested prospects just consistently through that machine. The more you feed that thing, you'll become just so successful. It's ridiculous. The other thing that you can do, or the other things you can do to feed the business, are remind yourself of the foundations. So rewatching these videos, working on your mindset and rewatching the mindset videos, closing calls and getting better at your expertise. These are really good feeder actions. Remember this from the last video, the only 4 things that matter: solid foundations and mindset, booking sales appointments, closing sales appointments, and delivering value and getting better at what you do. These are the feeder actions for the business. If you're not working on one of these 4 things, you're wasting your time. And a quote from Jordan Peterson for you. Someone asked him some really deep question and he gave his answer. I thought it was fantastic. And I instantly understood it because I understand second order consequences. He said, our actions echo into eternity. And what that means is that what you do now in this very moment in time is like what the decisions you make, the actions you take, they are going to, in a very small way, a very, very small way, determine the entire course of the future of the universe. And this is where you can derive meaning from, man, woman, person, whatever you are, robot. Like knowing this, you can just make your little corner of reality better. I mean, that's worth doing. So an action item for you. So what I want you to do now, once again, is pause this and do this. Find your worst feeder action that you have right now. God knows you've got one. You've got a habit, probably 5, But find your worst one, the worst feeder action. Like remember, your life is an aggregate of everything you've ever done. You've got this consequence map that you're living, and it's being fed by a couple of specific behaviors, right? Like, eating junk food or playing video games or, all of these just basic bad habits that you have, right? And I want you to basically make a decision to remove it. And if that sounds too difficult, then just try and not do it tomorrow. Because you've probably got these behaviors that you've done every day since you can remember. Let's just try and not do them tomorrow. That's a good place to start, right? That's your first action item. Not too tricky. Just, if there's something bad that you do every day that you shouldn't do, that maps out all these terrible consequences that if you don't stop doing is going to send you down to the pits of hell with enough time, let's just try and not do it tomorrow. That's action item number 1, okay? Make a decision to remove it, but more importantly, just don't do it tomorrow, okay? So stickability and consistency. So staying on this topic, and by the way, please do this now. Just pause the video and write down to yourself or tell yourself, we're going to remove this, but let's just in the future, we're going to remove it completely. But for now, let's just not do it tomorrow, all right? Or for 2 days, whatever you think you can manage. Don't try and like cut it off completely, because you're not there yet, mate. You haven't got the willpower, discipline, or energy to just miraculously cut terrible habits out of your life. Let's just start with 1 day or 1 morning, for God's sake, right? So stickability and consistency. If you want to progress along a positive trajectory towards your goal, then you need to isolate the feeder action, which is a physical behavior that can be habitualized by routine. Then you need to stubbornly repeat this feeder action daily. So all success is isolating feeder actions and consistently repeating them, or consistently not repeating them if it's bad. Sometimes it can take months of repeating this feeder action to trigger the second order consequence and the chain reaction. So in physics, right, let's use nuclear fusion as an example, okay? So if I explain this to you, so nuclear fusion is basically when I don't really know how it works. I can't really give you like a high level fancy explanation. So what I've done actually whilst thinking about it is I've pulled up this diagram for you. So this is what nuclear fission or nuclear fusion looks like. It might be fission, it might be fusion, but you get the point. So this is how consequence maps work, right? So this is how your life looks, is you start with one cause and this thing fans out in infinite directions. But this is how nuclear energy can be, can become a chain reaction, so to speak, right? And so, if you're trying to create these effects down here, what has to happen is something has to happen at the beginning, and it has to happen consistently and repeatedly. So, for example, this example here, we're combining these two things together, which is the, thesis and the antithesis. And sometimes you have to combine them together a lot. Like you've got to do this consistently for months before you start achieving the chain reaction you want to achieve like this, right? And so the point I'm making here is, like, don't think that just by making one cold call, you're suddenly going to get a client. Like, the universe is going to test you. And these feeder actions, like, it's kind of like getting like a chainsaw going. Like, you got to give that thing a few rips before it actually kicks off. You got to give it a few revs. And so when you're trying to change your life and make progress and, build a new consequence map for yourself, the first initial action, like, for example, eating clean or, in this case, doing outreach to get customers, sometimes you've got to do it a lot. You got to do it a lot. And then what will happen is you do it a lot, and then you'll get the consequence you want, which is getting a client, and then the chain reaction will start. Then it just gets easier and easier. And the more clients you get, the easier it gets, which means the more clients you get. And this is the feedback loop coming into play. So for example, right, it took me 3,500 cold calls to get my first client. And that's not a lie. It took me like 60 to 70 sales calls to get my first client. And it took me 3,500 cold calls to book 60 sales calls. I wasn't very good. Don't worry, it shouldn't take you, well, it might take you this many, I don't know, but I didn't really know what I was doing. But like, once you get the first client, once you get that first client, that feeling, like it's like the whole world opens up to you. Like, that's the second order consequence that's now going to create the chain reaction that could make you a billionaire. It's just one person buying from you, right? It's like, holy shit, it works, It's like that scene from, if you've seen the movie Castaway with Tom Hanks, where he creates fire. It's like, oh my God, fire. And really, like, civilization is a second order consequence of fire, of us discovering fire. Like, we discovered fire, and then, however many hundreds of thousands, or I don't know, millions of years later, whatever the hell it is. No, it's not millions, but, however many years later, now we've got MacBooks, and that's the second order consequence of the discovery of fire. But anyway, my point is that to make fire, it might take you a couple of days of rubbing some sticks together. And don't be afraid to do months of work to see no result to feed the consequence map. Likewise, it might take 30 workouts before someone sees weight loss. It might take 2,000 cigarettes before someone gets lung cancer. Like, if lung cancer was your goal, and you know that the feeder action to lung cancer is smoking 2,000 cigarettes, so smoking cigarettes, like, you wouldn't smoke, like, okay, you obviously don't want lung cancer. No one does. But let's say you wanted to get lung cancer, right? Like, you wouldn't just smoke like 10 cigarettes and be like, oh, where's my lung cancer? Oh, this doesn't work. Cigarettes don't work. I'm giving up. Like, when you invert it against a negative consequence, it makes a lot of sense. But for some reason, people struggle with gauging the positive. And it's the same thing. Like, let's say you want to find a wife. You might need to approach 1,000 women, depending on how much riz you have. Hopefully it's not 1,000, but you know what I mean? Like, these feeder actions, man, we just got to keep on feeding. It's literally just like your body. Every day, wake up, you got to feed it. It's the same thing with success. You got to find the thing that feeds it. You got to habitualize it into a daily routine and just consistently never stop. And then eventually what you can do is you can hire people to feed it for you. So I don't make cold calls anymore. You know, I like when I had my agency doing 100K a month, I had people feeding it for me. Like, I hired them. But you're not there yet. So you've probably heard the phrase consistency is the key to success. And you've probably never really understood why. Maybe you're like, yeah, I get it. Consistency is important. But now that you know this, like, using your understanding of time, feedback loops, and second order consequences and consequence maps, you should now understand why consistency is the key to success. And this should make it more justifiable. Everything I've just told you, everything, serves the purpose of you justifying consistency and something called stickability. That's the whole reason I've just spent 2.5 hours explaining all these abstractions to you is just so I can encourage you to be more consistent and more stickable. So the second lesser known key to success with your consulting business is what I call stickability. So stickability, kind of clues in the name, is basically how sticky you are to your foundations in the consulting business model. So in other words, can you stick to things without getting shiny object syndrome and hopping between business models, niches, and problems? Now, if you want to be successful and see this exponential loop, you've got to stick to it. You've got to be consistent with these 3 things. First of all, you must stick to the consulting business model. You must stick to the niche you pick, and you must stick to the problem you aim to solve for them. Once again, don't worry about, what if I pick the wrong niche or the wrong problem? Because we're going to talk about that in the niche and the problem video. I'm going to make sure you don't pick the wrong niche or wrong problem. Because the truth is that provided someone else has made the niche work and that someone else has solved the problem, then success is possible and it can be done. All we have to do is iterate our way to success, which once again I will explain in a later video. Your job after picking is to stick. Okay? So I'm going to capitalize this. Pick and stick. Okay? Pick and stick. That's all you've got to do is pick and stick. And like, I can tell you that your brain's gonna go fucking crazy on you. Like, you know, you're gonna get a couple months in, you're gonna be like, oh, this isn't working. This doesn't work for me. Like, you know, consulting isn't for me, and this niche isn't, like, it's not good, and the problem I just can't solve. Like, you're gonna attack, you know, your stickability. But it is imperative that you stick, because, you know, remember, it's just having the patience to just sort of rev up that initial action and just consistently feed it and get that first consequence. And then the second and third and fourth and fifth, you're still not seeing, like, you know, even by like maybe here we're at the like 15th consequence or the 70th consequence, and you're still not seeing what you want. But just keep on feeding it and just trust the process, and trust that if you're in a niche that supports growth, solving a problem that is painful that you can create value through, with enough time and enough feeder actions, you will just whoosh, flywheel. And then everyone will think that you got lucky. Oh man, that's literally how it goes as well. I had this where, like, you know, suddenly I went from making like $1 million a year to like $10 million a year. And everyone was like, what the hell? You got lucky, man. I was like, no, you just haven't seen the 6 years of work I put in to get to this point of exponentialism. So notice how the graph above shows very little progress for the first chunk of time. And then it curves up. Right? Every time you switch your business model, your niche or your problem, you reset your consequence trajectory back to 0. This is hugely important. So you're on a trajectory, a positive trajectory, and all you've got to do is stick to it and keep feeding the initial action, right? Just keep on pumping away, keep feeding that thing. If you switch to a different business model, if you switch to a different niche, or you switch the problem that you're helping that niche solve, you immediately reset yourself back to 0. Because think about it. Let's say that you're in the consulting business, you give it 5 months, you get one lousy client and you give up and you switch to drop shipping. Well, you could have been 2 months away from getting 7 clients. But by switching to drop shipping, now you've got to go through the initial 5 months of suffering again to even get anywhere remotely near close to where you want to be. And then you're going to get 5 months into drop shipping, make a few lousy sales, and then quit and go and do Amazon FBA or something else. This is how people do it, and it's just stupid. Same thing with your niche. You're in a niche, you pick it 4 months in, you haven't got a client yet. The niche just sucks. Like, instead of blaming the business model, the niche, or the problem, blame yourself, because that's the truth. and you switch the niche. And then you, as soon as you switch the niche of the problem, you reset your consequence map back to 0 and you're back to square one. Then all that progress you made, that you didn't, the effect you didn't really see, you're just blind to the effect, you've just gone back to 0. And now you've got to go through it all again. And you know, it's impossible to achieve success without going through this. So don't be fooled into thinking that if you switch to something shinier, that it's going to happen quickly, because it won't. So don't fucking do it. I know that I'm kind of being a little bit passionate with some of my words and the phrases and the choice of swear words I'm using here, but this is just so important. If I can just get you to do one thing, it's just stick to it. All right, which is why I'm doing this. So an action item for you. Once again, do this now. Okay, don't put it off. Don't just watch this thing in I know some of you have. Some of you have watched this in 2 times speed with 100 tabs open. You're probably not even listening right now. Some of you are on your phones like, I can't help you. You might as well just leave, right? But for those of you that are listening, that have been taking notes, that have been doing the action items, first of all, well fucking done. Congratulations. I am proud of you and I'm happy that you're doing it. So keep it up because you're doing very well so far, okay? So action item, write this down right now. Pen and paper. I promise to myself and Charlie that I will stick with this program and this training. I will stick to consulting. I will stick to the niche I pick, and I will stick to the problem I pick to solve. I understand that I have countless temptations to switch. I will have countless temptations to switch to a different business, niche or problem, and I will doubt all of these along the way, but I won't listen to all this bullshit, and I will be a person with extremely high stickability and consistency. Okay? So I want you to write this down. And I know it seems trivial, like, oh, he's just getting us to write stuff down. That's not really business. But I just want you to make this agreement with yourself. And if you're doing the action items and you're listening, like, dude, well done, man, woman, whoever you are, person, like, this is really good work. Like, you're unfolding some second order consequences, you know, and I'm happy that you're doing it, and you should be really happy as well. And, you know, I know that you're not seeing any money in the bank yet. I know we're only, you know, 5 or 6 hours into these videos, but you're doing good so far, man. Okay, woman, person. So summary. So we talked about the consulting foundations, which we defined the 5 foundations of niche, problem, solution, result, and offer. We put those into a hypothesis and explored that. And then we actually, you know, understood the consulting equation and how that thing works. Discussed knowledge, memory, and time, and how that thing happens where, you know, remember to remember, basically. Like how, if you're not careful, like things are going to happen in your life and you're going to forget what made them happen. So if you don't like what you have now, then you can't remember what you did to do it. So you can't stop doing that. And if you have what you want, you can't remember what you did to get what you want. So you stop doing it and then you don't have what you want in the future. So we talked about that, which is a bit of a, you know, complicated thing to wrap our heads around. Then we discussed exponential distribution, feedback loops, second order consequences, obviously the consequence maps, feeder actions, and then obviously last but not least, you know, just maintaining that just ruthless, dogged consistency over time, non-stop, sticking to it, being consistent, feeding the actions, trusting the process, and just biding your time and waiting. And if you've paid attention to this video and you actually do it, you're going to be way more successful than people that haven't. And I'm excited to see that in a year or 2 from now. So I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.